Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most complex and long-standing geopolitical conflicts in the world, the tension between Iran and Israel. It's a conflict that has shaped the Middle East for decades, but it's also one with implications that reach far beyond the region itself, affecting global politics, economics, and even security. So, let's explore how this all began, how it's evolved over the years, and most importantly, what it means for the world today. But first, let's address the most fundamental question. Why is this conflict so important? While Iran and Israel are hundreds of miles apart, their hostile relations have had a profound impact on both countries and the broader Middle East. It's a conflict driven by ideology, power, religion, and, more recently, nuclear ambitions. From proxy wars in neighboring countries to diplomatic tensions on the world stage, the Iran-Israel conflict affects millions of lives, both directly and indirectly. 2. The early days, before the conflict. Let's rewind to a time before the animosity we see today. Believe it or not, there was a time when Iran and Israel had relatively normal relations. This was during the reign of Iran's Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, before the 1979 Iranian Revolution. In fact, Iran was one of the first Muslim-majority countries to recognize Israel as a legitimate state after its founding in 1948. Iran, under the Shah, had significant oil exports, and Israel, though a young nation, was a growing power in the Middle East. The two nations cooperated on several levels: economic, military, and political. But things drastically changed in 1979. The Iranian Revolution saw the Shah overthrown and the establishment of an Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini, who took a radically different stance toward Israel. The new Iranian leadership viewed Israel as an illegitimate state, often referring to it as the Little Satan, a term used to symbolize Israel's perceived oppression of Muslims. 3. The rise of hostility. With the rise of the Islamic Republic, Iran's rhetoric against Israel became a central part of its foreign policy. Khomeini's ideology was driven by anti-Zionism and anti-Western sentiments, and Israel became a focal point of that hostility. Iran's support for Palestinian groups like Hezbollah and Hamas became an integral part of its strategy to oppose Israel. These groups, who are often in direct conflict with Israel, receive financial and military backing from Tehran, and Iran uses them as proxy forces to challenge Israel's influence in the region without directly engaging in warfare. But beyond supporting these groups, Iran also positioned itself as a leader of the resistance against Israeli occupation of Palestinian territories. This further fueled regional tensions, setting the stage for ongoing proxy conflicts. 4. The nuclear question. The turning point. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and a new layer of tension emerged: Iran's nuclear program. Israel has long viewed Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat. While Iran insists its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes, such as energy production, Israel fears that Iran could use nuclear technology to develop weapons. This fear has been a central issue in Israeli security policy for the last 2 decades. Israel has repeatedly urged the international community to take stronger action against Iran's nuclear ambitions, leading to sanctions and diplomatic pressure on Iran, particularly from the US and European powers. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, or the Iran nuclear deal, was signed in 2015 with the hope of halting Iran's potential nuclear weapons development in exchange for lifting economic sanctions. However, the deal faced major challenges. The Trump administration pulled out of the deal in 2018, arguing that it didn't go far enough to prevent Iran from eventually obtaining nuclear capabilities. In response, Iran began ramping up its nuclear activities once again, leading to further escalation in tensions. 5. Proxy wars and regional influence. As we dive deeper into the modern-day conflict, we must understand how the Iran-Israel rivalry plays out in proxy wars across the region. Iran has built strong alliances with groups and regimes in countries like Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen. These alliances are part of Iran's strategy to project power and counterbalance Israel's influence. One of the most significant of these proxy forces is Hezbollah, a powerful militia based in Lebanon that has frequently clashed with Israeli forces. Syria is another major battleground. Iran has supported the Assad regime throughout the Syrian civil war, while Israel has conducted numerous airstrikes in Syria, targeting Iranian forces and arms shipments intended for Hezbollah. Yemen has also become a focal point, with Iran supporting the Houthi rebels, who have occasionally targeted Israeli interests. These conflicts are often framed as part of a broader struggle between Iran's Shiite Islamic Republic and Sunni powers in the Middle East, particularly Saudi Arabia, which supports Israel's stance against Iranian expansion. 6. International diplomatic implications. Beyond the Middle East, the Iran-Israel conflict has significant international ramifications. The United States has long been Israel's most important ally. Its diplomatic and military support for Israel has shaped U.S. foreign policy in the region for decades. However, the U.S. also has had to navigate complex relationships with other Middle Eastern powers, particularly when it comes to Iran. Countries like Russia and China, on the other hand, have closer ties to Iran. Russia has been instrumental in supporting Iran during the Syrian civil war, and China's economic interests in Iran have led to deepening trade relations. This has created a web of alliances and rivalries that has complicated international diplomacy. The Iran-Israel conflict also affects global security. Iran's growing missile program, along with the potential for nuclear escalation, has been a significant concern for not just Israel, but the entire international community. The fear of a wider war, or a potential nuclear standoff, makes this issue one of global significance. 7. Economic and humanitarian impact. It's not just politics and military tensions. The conflict has had real consequences on the people of the region and the economy. Economic sanctions on Iran, imposed due to its nuclear program, have had a devastating impact on its economy, leading to inflation, unemployment, and widespread poverty. This economic crisis has fueled internal unrest within Iran, with many protesting the government's focus on foreign conflicts instead of addressing domestic issues. On the Israeli side, the constant threat of missile attacks from groups like Hamas and Hezbollah has created a climate of fear, particularly in border areas. The Israeli defense system, including the Iron Dome, has been effective, but the psychological toll on civilians is profound. 8. Conclusion. So, what's next for the Iran-Israel conflict? As of now, it's difficult to see an easy resolution to these tensions. Both